Now, this is sort of the question I've been waiting for. So I really want Riham to paint a picture for us. What was it like to be in the middle of Arab Spring? What made it exciting? What made it, you know, something really, really refreshing? And can you share with us just what it was like to be a woman in Cairo during Arab Spring?
Okay. All right. Before I answer this question, I just want to add to my previous comment about all the changes that were done for women's rights under the Mubarak regime. I wanted to tell you that the changes were done on the regime level in order for the regime to just beautify itself. So we appoint a number of women as ministers, and we will have women in parliament just to beautify the regime. But the rest of the society, they don't feel the changes. And there was no culture change whatsoever of how society view women and the role of women as a result of all the changes that the regime made. The main purpose of that is to beautify the regime, to make sure that the regime will stay in place, and that the regime will go from the father to the son. Okay, that the son will inherit from or his father's position. And then January 25th happened, and at the forefront of January 25th were women activists like Asma Mahfouz, who had her message on YouTube and Twitter, on Facebook, telling young men and women, if I can do it, if I can go to Tahrir Square on January 25th, you can go too. Don't be afraid. You have to be there, fighting for social justice, for dignity, for equality, for all Egyptians. So women were at the forefront of the revolution. Women were very active during the 18 days of the utopian sit-in Tahrir Square. Women did a lot to support this revolution, especially like women like Asma Mahfouz, Nawara Negm, and others. They were there present in Tahrir Square. But after the sit-in, when everybody went home and we gave power to the military council, things began to change a little bit and not in a very good way. That's why we have concerns and fears that all the achievements that we did can wither away. As I told you, the 18 days of the sit-in in Tahrir or Tahrir Square, they were so beautiful. I think you saw that on television, women participation, the absence of the famous or the infamous sexual harassment that is very widespread in Egypt. There were no incidents of sexual harassment in Tahrir Square. But as soon as the military council took power, things has changed. Starting from the day of March 8th, women went back to Tahrir Square to celebrate International Women's Day, to assert their presence, and they are ready to take the spirit of Tahrir Square into building the new Egypt. But what happened that day, that was supposed to be a celebration, okay, of International Women's Day, and of course the revolution and the end of the Mubarak regime turned really ugly and violent, and women were abused and beaten and forced to take virginity tests, and those revolutionary women, they were actually being accused as prostitutes by the military police. This is how the military or the military council view revolutionary women, or women who spend the night in a sit-in in Tahrir Square as prostitutes. After that, also sexual harassment, unfortunately, came back up to its pre-January 25th level. Another important milestone along the way, I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, we asked for a new constitution. Of course, after a revolution, your constitution is dead, so you need a new constitution. We asked for a new constitution. The military council said, no. We're going to revive the old constitution, and we will amend the 6 articles of it. We tried to resist, it didn't work. So the military council nominated a committee of 10 members. None of them were women. Okay, and in fact, the head of this committee is Tariq al-Bishri, who is well known for, he was against the appointment of the first female judge in 2003. Of course, women said, yeah, that's okay, we don't need to be present in the Constitution Committee, it's just a constitution after all. Okay? We don't need to be be there until they discovered there's one of the articles saying that the future Egyptian president cannot be married to a foreign woman. This means that the future Egyptian president will be a man, definitely. Did I lose anybody? Is anybody sad? Don't be upset. This is just part of the ills that we are facing in the Egyptian society. Not just against women, it's against youth, against Copts. Copts are Egyptian Christian. Okay, so we have this fear that the old gender roles, of course, will be reinstated, especially now in Egypt there is time of chaos, and everything is in flux, and of course nothing is good to cope with this situation. Nothing is better than putting some good old norms and gender roles back in place in order to feel secure. Another fear or another thing that we're facing is the rise of Islamist political parties. Of course, under the Mubarak regime, they were banned, but now they are free to participate. And we have a number of political parties and a number of presidential candidates who are from an Islamic background. One of them is a Salafi presidential nominee. His name is Hazm Salah Abu Ismail, who I met him in one of his speeches, and he was asked about women and work. And he said, yes, the brutal regime of Mubarak forced women to work. And when I become a president, women have to go back to their normal place, home. So it's like, okay, thank you so much. As long as you are willing to provide me a rich husband, I'm with you. Of course, we're trying to pressure, of course, women are not silent. In all this chaos, we're fighting. We're trying to pressure political parties to define their position when it comes to women. So the Muslim Brotherhood said, oh, okay, if women would run for presidency, it's okay with us, but we're not going to support them. And of course, we'll not nominate women for presidency, but it's okay for us if they want to run. Hizb al-Nur, for example, had their first, it's a Salafi party. Salafi, in short, it's people who believe that they have to go back to the good old days of the Salaf or our ancestor, which is like the, yeah, in short, they believe in the literal interpretation of the Quran. They are fundamentalists, in short. Hizb al-Nur had their first women, thank God, their first women conference of Hizb al-Nur. And they were showing the pictures. And I circulated the picture on my Facebook account. So there's this big banner, the first women conference of Hizb al-Nur. And all the men on the seats. And in the audience, it's like, where are the women?
It's not for women, it's about women.
So I actually circulated the picture and I said, Bob Marley said, no woman, no cry. So the Muslim Brotherhood did the same thing too. They had their first women conference, and on the seat there were Khayrat al-Shatir and Sa'id al-Katatni and all men. It's like, where are the women? Okay. Hizb al-Nur also and other Salafi. Oh no, I have a lot to say, please. That's the Arab Spring. That's the fun part. Okay. What else I wanted to say?
Sorry.
What was it? I forgot what I wanted to say. What was the beginning? Oh yeah. Hizb al-Nur said, we want women. Actually, yani, we support women. We want women to go out and vote. But after they vote, they have to go back home. Vote for us, then go back home. Some of them, they put forward a women candidate. They're all covered in black. I can't even know like who's who, and I don't know.
I'm not sure if it's even a woman.
Maybe. Where are women from all this chaos? Of course, they are fighting. They're trying to be present. They relaunched the Egyptian Women's Union in order to provide like a voting bloc in the next parliamentary election. The fear is if we talk about women's rights during this time, we will be called, or we will be accused of political opportunism. The main battle now is, of course, to reform the current system, and of course to demand equality and justice for all men. Maybe I'll stop here, and maybe in the next question I can pick it up.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Yes.
You can have one more chance.
All right. Just one more thing?
All right. Now we're going to turn it over to Jennifer, because obviously Arab Spring has had a huge influence on both Egypt and all the countries that have gone through it, but also surrounding countries, other Muslim countries. So we wanted to hear from Jennifer. An organization like WLP, how are they adjusting their thinking? Are they seeing changes in the way that things are unfolding on the ground, both in countries that have gone through some kind of demonstrations and in other Arab or Muslim countries where there may be discussions of this situation?
Sure. Well, a lot of what our partners are expressing is cautious optimism, and a great deal that I've heard from them echoes a lot of what Riham has been saying, that there's a concern in countries where there has been progress towards women's rights that it's going to roll back quite a bit, and that women are as active as they were in the process of revolution and in calling for reform. They have been frequently excluded from the reform process itself. So we're having to do a lot of regrouping with our partners and strategizing across borders on what are the ways of interjecting ourselves into the conversations again, in building women's participation from the ground up. So in terms of the grassroots trainings, we've been working extensively on women's political participation, not so much from a technical standpoint, but more of an ethical one, how to be involved as a member of the electorate and know what candidates are out there. Knowing if a woman candidate is going to actually represent women's interests. If that is even of concern, I think there are a lot of just core concerns that are coming up right now that again kind of dilute the situation. We've focused a lot of our efforts at this point on women's rights at the constitutional reform level. That's been a major issue with our partners in Morocco. They worked on that throughout the summer. And we're also working more broadly now on civil society outreach, particularly with women's groups, and one of the reasons that they're feeling very vulnerable right now is the constant problem of never being quite as organized and clear in their messaging as our more conservative groups. That's something we face in the US as well. So in order to bolster civil society capacity, we're really redoubling our efforts to make sure that our programs are available, that we're supporting network building. In light of the significance of ICTs, of technology and youth participation, we've always focused on those two areas of our programs, but we're broadening them extensively right now and trying to build a comprehensive resource that can help bring groups together, apart from the slightly more formal interactions of civil society organizations themselves, so that they can actually share resources and share what's happening and engage multiple levels. I think you can't talk about women's rights without talking about young people. You can't talk about women's rights without involving men. So to the extent that that's always been a part of the practice of a number of our partner organizations, that's become even more important at this point.
Realized that that we actually have a little bit more time than I thought we had. So, so I think if you want to continue talking about Arab Spring and going to more, we have two questions on here about the role of the U.S. In the region, which I really wanted to get to. But I could either have you continue with Arab Spring or start talking about the U.S., or maybe you could combine the two. Okay. So a little bit more about Arab Spring, and then the U.S. What are we doing over there, and how are we involved in supporting, causing problems, etc.?
Okay. Well, I'm going to answer first the U.S. question, then continue with Arab Spring, because I want to connect that to the future, what's going to happen next, the problem, and how to move forward. Okay, United States and its role in the region. Historically speaking, the United States was always torn between its ideals and interest in the region, and that was quite obvious during the past years. United States was wanted democracy, but was not sure that democracy is good for United States national interests. So democracy maybe will bring Islamists in power, and that's not good for national interest in the region. United States knew about the situation of Saudi women, but United States was a good friend with the Saudi regime, never raised the issue of Saudi women, or maybe touched upon it slightly, but United States foreign policy in the region when it comes to issues of democracy and dignity and women's rights and human rights has proved to be counterproductive, actually. And of course, it has little impact. We have not seen any changes when it comes to democracy or women's rights as a result of United States foreign policy in the region, or even as a result of the war on Iraq. When the United States started talking about women's rights and human rights, Arabs accused the United States of cultural imperialism. See, they want to impose their values on us, and we, of course, do not want that. So I would say that any changes, in order to take place in the region, it must be indigenous, local, and culturally rooted in the society. But also, Muslim people or Egyptian people in particular, they have problem with the United States in terms of the gap between actions and words. Obama visited Egypt a couple of years ago, and he gave a wonderful speech at Cairo University. Everybody was happy with it, very optimistic. Obama definitely raised our hopes up that things will change in the regions, but we waited 1 year, 2 years, and nothing has changed. It proved to be just words. Nothing has changed. So people, maybe I don't want to say that, but they just don't believe that the United States is genuine about any changes in the region. Then came the second Obama speech that was a couple months ago, and nobody actually paid attention to it. And a lot of people criticize it, the way, for example, President Obama talked about Libya, and the way he did not talk or did not stress the issue of Bahrain. Of course, it raised the concern of double standards. Why Libya, not Bahrain? Why Syria, not other places? And there is, of course, the problem of the Palestinian issue. If you're really true about national self-determination of Middle Eastern people or Arab people, what about the Palestinian people? How the United States will handle the Palestinian issue, especially from now on, what happened in the UNESCO, what's happening in the United Nations, will be the test for the future of the relationship between the United States and the Arab people. Because Arab governments, from now on, will learn to listen to Arab people. The United States needs to understand that things will not be the same as it was before. The United States cannot continue to do business as usual. That they will tell Arab government to do something, and Arab government will not listen to their people, but will listen to the United States. This is not going to happen again. So Arab government will have to be responsive to the people, and the United States will have to learn to deal with that and change maybe the way they approach things in that region. And again, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict will be the first and the most important test for the future relation between Egypt, or the Arab and the United States.
And actually, Jennifer, this came up earlier in some of the discussions of other questions. You know, if you're a U.S.-based organization, how do you deal with this taint that often goes along with U.S. money and U.S. organizations? So that's what, we're still on the U.S. theme.
So one of the things that has enabled our partners to work efficiently and effectively is that they are autonomous. They are not a U.S. organization. We are always concerned about our communications and how that is represented. I think right now one of our deepest concerns is the case of Bahrain, which up until now our biggest problem with maintaining security with human rights defenders had been with the folks we're in communication with in Iran. But Bahrain in particular right now, because that's being handled differently from a U.S. foreign policy perspective, is it's actually made it far more difficult for our colleagues to work in the same way and to communicate what's really happening on the ground. So just a little digression from your question, but it is a major concern of ours. In terms of funding, that is something we have addressed and made a decision a long time ago. We do not take funds directly from the U.S. government. Most of our partners do not. We have one pretty significant exception to that. That is their decision. But we don't want to have that suggestion of direct funding from the U.S. And that's been one of the most important pieces in getting our work done. We do take funds from the National Endowment for Democracy, which is has some connection, but it is a different institution, and because it is supporting democratic values, our partners are all very comfortable with that. But it is an ongoing conversation when we convene with our partners, when we speak to them one-on-one, because it's of utmost importance that they maintain their integrity within their own context, and we would quickly let go of anything that is not going to be consistent with what they need in order to get their work done.